Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, yeah. Hold on, let me pull up I was reading. Where's the Zoom? There, now I can see your beautiful faces.
He was looking at us this whole time.
Welcome to Podcrushed. You've caught us mid-laugh.
But just that you're never looking at us on Zoom. You're never looking at our faces.
Why do you say that?
Just before we started, he said, "Oh, let me pull up your faces again." just
like we've been talking for like 10 minutes. He had us minimize.
It's so not true, though. I mean, look, of all the faces I see virtually and in a work context, they're the two faces I see the most.
It's
So that's
true.
why you
It's
minimize
true.
it to like minimize the amount that you have to actually.
Yeah. Speaking of which, actually.
Yeah, actually, just a little bit of news, a little bit of housekeeping news before we move on. I've gotten a lot of messages. People are wondering, because David and I are moving to Austin, actually, this summer. And people are wondering, is the podcast continuing? And it is, because as you see now, well, Penn doesn't often see, but we are on Zoom most of the time. So we'll be continuing as normal. And then I'll be traveling when we need to. But yeah, really sad to be not 5 minutes away from Nava anymore.
Yeah.
But still thousands of miles away from me.
Yeah. I wooed because I'm happy for Sophie to achieve her dream of having a yard 2 years ahead of her goal. But I am really sad that she's going to be so far away.
Yeah, but it won't be any different for you listening.
For you,
For y'all
crushies.
crushies.
Yeah. Yeah. Only I am crushed in this scenario. What you may or may not be crushed about, depending on how much you care about my face, is that you will only be seeing half of it in this episode because I once again mounted my phone improperly and the camera angle was all wrong and my face is cut off. So sorry.
It's funny.
Yeah. It is a fun part of these recent episodes. Like, where's Nava's face gonna be?
Yeah. Where's the angle?
All right. Well, you know what? You know whose face was just front and center this whole time?
Who?
Well, was today's guest. This is a really lovely one. I mean, I suppose we say that a lot, and every guest is special in their own way. But Bryce Dallas Howard, there's something really magnetic about her. An award-winning actor and director who you probably know already from huge franchises like Jurassic World, Dominion. She's got her epic episode of Black Mirror. Back in the day, her first film was The Village from M. Night Shyamalan. She's directed huge things, a documentary for her own called Dads, also some episodes of The Mandalorian, and another doc she has about pets.
A few minutes into the episode, she talks about her dad, and we kind of all riff on that, but we never mention who he is. So just in case.
Wait. Who's her dad?
Ron Howard.
Oh, because I thought. Now it makes sense.
Wow. Now
get
it's all
Bryce
coming
That's why she
together.
was on set for Apollo 13. I was really having trouble connecting the
Putting it
dots.
together.
Anyway, Bryce's newest project is a film called Deep Cover, starring Orlando Bloom and Nick Mohammed. They play improv actors. Need I say more? It's very funny, very charming. We loved chatting with Bryce. We know you will love listening. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to Podcrushed. We're your hosts. I'm Penn.
I'm Nava,
And I'm Sophie. And I think we would have been your middle school besties.
writing Legolas and Aragorn fanfic.
Ooh, steamy. So what we do here, we start at 12. That's like, we start at 12 because it's a formative time of life for all people. But of course, for performers and artists, it's often when they're starting to really engage in the world in that way, or at least see the world in that way. The bug is calling them. You are in a smaller group of people where, it seems as though the bug bit you very early. You come from a family where it was an obvious path if you wanted it, at least to explore, you know what I mean? So I'm just curious, what was life like for 12-year-old Bryce? How did she see the world? And what was her day-to-day life like between, home and school?
So I basically, the demarcation of time in my life is basically determined by whatever movie my dad was making at the time. So 12 was Apollo 13. And
Wow.
Amazing.
I just had like a vision of being in that theater at like 9 years old with my mom. Sorry, that's massive. Wow.
Yeah. It was really cool, really, really cool, and it was like you're saying, it was certainly a formative time because I was kind of as a person, I took a long time to come online, sort of. I was really introverted and just quiet into myself, and had some learning disabilities that were really confusing for people, because they were like, she's testing really high here and she's testing really low here, and we don't understand. And when I was 12, I had just gone through a bunch of tests, and I was, of which many I scored very low, but there were some areas where I scored really high. And so I was able to enroll in a program that was in the summer, that was like school in the summer, but not like because you've missed school, but it's like you get to take college classes and stuff like that. Like it was at Vassar College. And so for me, that year was a big deal, because I started to understand what my strengths were intellectually, and what my interests were. And then in terms of Apollo 13, we all moved out to Los Angeles for that. I was raised mostly in New York, and I got to be on set as like an intern, basically. And Colin Hanks was on set as a PA. He was 16, and he was working his butt off. He was working really, 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 really hard. And they sort of like assigned me to him. And I had a crush on Colin for so long. So like my whole life. Like just any time that I encountered him, I was like, oh my God. Now that's a man. And so when I was there, I basically was like, I became like his like little buddy. They were like, yeah, Bryce can like help Colin out, who's, actually doing real things. And so I would sort of take down the lunch orders and all of that. But oh man, there was no chance, no shot. I was pretty like, I was brace-faced, and I had bangs then, but I hadn't figured out the cowlicks and how to kind of wrangle them. And
Do you think your dad or his dad knew about the crush, or Colin?
I mean, my dad knew, for sure. I don't think his dad knew, and I don't think he knew. But yeah, no, my dad totally knew.
That's really sweet.
That is so cute. It's also kind of answering one of our classic questions too, because we always ask like, what's a big first crush, or first love, or first heartbreak, and it sounds like that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Colin was a really big crush, a really, really, really big crush. But I did something that I wish everybody could experience, and I'm sure a lot of people will argue with me on this, but I decided that I wasn't going to date anyone until I was 18.
You decided this yourself.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like this. Like, I'm a little bit rigid. Like, I've never had a sip of alcohol my entire life.
Wow.
Because I was just sort of like, nope. And so with the dating thing and heartbreak thing, I mean, I genuinely may have had my heart bruised, but really never broken, because I didn't start dating until I was 18, and at that point, like, I got together with my husband when I was 19.
Wow. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, it's some of it is of course nature, but then I mean, what aspect of it is nurture or environment? My
mom is she's sort of like very unapologetically herself. She was really. Her and my dad met when they were 16. They just had their 50-year wedding anniversary yesterday.
Oh my gosh, congratulations to them. That's incredible.
That's
really
beautiful.
Sweet. And she was, when they went on their first date when they were 16, she had already soloed a plane by herself. She was managing a gun range on her own. She was a single dad, so she was raising her younger sisters. And also kind of taking care of her dad, who was a scientist. And so she was just very adventurous and capable. She was upset that she's really athletic, that there weren't proper sports for girls, just cheerleading. And so she cut her hair and called herself Charlie and joined the football team. and
Oh my
then
goodness.
and then when they found out that she was a girl, they were like,
I didn't know that could actually happen.
I
Yeah.
know that's a movie. That's a plot of many
Yeah,
movies.
she did
She's
that.
the man.
She did that exactly, and so but then when she got kicked off of that, she started a track team. So she started. She was like, okay, can I we need a different sports option here other than cheerleading, and so she started the track team. So that was who my dad kind of fell in love with, and she's never been. She loves stories. She's a writer, all of that, but she's not at all interested in sort of like the industry in a classic sense, and isn't ambitious in terms of any of that. Like early on, 15 years ago, started telling my dad was like, you've got to spend more time on TV sets because all this time that they give you to shoot, that's going to go away real soon. You're going to need to be able to keep up, and you're going to need to be able to shoot things that are not the budget that you're used to. And so 15 years ago, my dad started
so
visiting TV sets and all of that. And so she's she's savvy, but she's like, it's not something that is really important to her. Like what's important to her is sort of like living life, and and she definitely has this sense of certainty about her that is unique.
Bryce, do you remember how old you were when you decided not to date until you were 18?
Before high school, my first kiss was when I was 15 at Stage Door Manor. I did like a performing arts summer camp, and that was a lovely scenario. Didn't ultimately work out, not because of anything other than he's gay. So it was lovely. Like everything was great. Honestly, everything was so great. And but I had that experience. I was like, okay, I want to like kiss a boy. Yeah. But I was not. It was before high school. I was just like, I don't want to get in any drama. I also never once ate lunch in the lunchroom in high school. I went to public high school, and I never once went into the lunchroom.
Where did you
all
eat?
of high school? There was a like an alcove that I would go and eat in, or I would go hang out with Mr. Scotch, who was like he was my English teacher, and he was like my best friend, and yeah, it was the best. And so and we're still totally in touch. So I would go eat with him a lot. And he wouldn't. I was terrible eater, and so he used to keep clementines in his office, and I wasn't allowed to come in until I ate a clementine, because I would like come in with like 2 bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches and like 2 cookies and 2 chocolate milks, and I was like, "That's the lunch." And he's like, "You're gonna die of scurvy." That's what he would say.
I do want to hear more about Mr. Scotch. I know that he showed. Like he was able to see through your learning disability at a time when it seemed other people weren't. But I had one question related to that.
Oh, you're well researched, Sophie. My goodness. Whoa.
But I had a question related to that about before you met Mr. Scotch, before you had a mentor who could kind of see through that. How were your parents helping you think about your experience with your learning disability? Were they talking to you about it? Did they help you feel some confidence around it? What was that like?
No, it was really confusing for them. They didn't really. I was always a sweet kid and an affable kid, but they weren't quite sure what was registering and what wasn't registering, and then I would sort of go with the flow. So it was like, okay, that's fine. But as I got a little bit older, like I remember my dad would always say, he was like, you know what you would be so great at is you should go and like work at like Banana Republic or Gap, and you can like open the door for people, and you have such a wonderful smile, and like people will like want to come into the store because you're there. And I was like, oh, cool. And he was like, yeah, you should apply to like go and do some sort of internship there or something. And I worked at on the weekends, starting in 9th grade, I worked at a little deli and I would do like the cash register and all of that. And I remember my parents being like impressed that I was able to do that. Wow. And it was because in ninth grade, my English class was English for a second language, and I don't speak a second language. And so it just, there wasn't really the structure. I mean, listen, I'm kind of private about this, but I have been properly diagnosed, and I'm on the autism spectrum. Okay. And so that's something that it is confusing for parents because, and especially girls growing up, in the 80s and 90s, they didn't think that was possible. And so it was just like, so ninth grade, that was that. And then I had kind of the right structure and support and just sort of like came into my own, and senior year I won the English award. So it was definitely a journey, and even still now my parents like still talk about it. They were like, it was just, you were such a mystery, and like you're still such a mystery, and like the things that you're into and the things that you do, and
they think you're still
the things
a mystery.
that you learn about. Yeah, that's how. Yeah. I'm still a mystery because I get into things, and then like I'm finishing a fine arts program right now. I'll graduate in October, and like I had never drawn or done anything before a couple of years ago, and I just got into some watercolors, and then I was like, like it was just like intense, and then it was like, okay, well, it can't stop here until I do like, fine art drawing and oil painting and mixed media and all of that, and so they're sort of, I think my dad understands me a lot more. I think I'm a little perplexing. I was a little perplexing to my mom for a little while, for sure.
Were you, maybe as you were, entering and coming through adolescence, did you think maybe you were going to be a writer more than anything? That's what it sounds like. Possibly.
You know what's really funny? So Lowell and Babalu, these guys, Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel, these great writers. They wrote Parenthood. They wrote League of Their Own. They wrote like so many of the Splash, so many of the movies that my dad did, and kind of like launched my dad's career as a filmmaker because of everything that they wrote. And they all had kids around the same time, and we would all go to this like jamboree thing, like this like play area. And their kids would be playing and all of this, and I would just be kind of like standing there. And Lowell and Babalu could see that my dad was always super stressed about it. And they were like, don't worry, Ron, she's just a writer. She's just a writer. She's just not in it. Like I would never participate in recess. I would circle the yard, and I would do the ABCs in sign language. And it was great. Like it was great childhood with a very deep internal life. And then there was a tree that I would call my thinking tree, and I would go and sit on the tree. I was like removed from all the children, and maybe it seemed a little strange, but I really liked it.
I love that.
Meet JLab, headphones as versatile as you. Work out, jam out, tune out, and find the perfect fit with JLab. JLab's diverse collection of headphones has something for everyone and for every moment. Think headphones in a million different colors and styles with features that you actually want for working out, chilling out, and jamming out. When I put my daughter to sleep, I lay with her until she falls asleep, which can sometimes take quite a while. And so one of the things that I always make sure I have with me are my JLab mini earbuds, specifically the JLab Buds Mini True wireless earbuds. They're super lightweight, and they have a surprisingly long battery life. Like the first time I used them, I went like several days before I ever had to think about charging them again. It was shocking to me. It's like different from any earbuds I've had before. They have made our bedtime routine with our baby so much smoother because I'm so happy to just lay there with her until she fully falls asleep and is comfortable, and I'm listening to a podcast or music or whatever. And we're just both so happy in that scenario. So I never do a bedtime without them, pretty much. Look for the blue box at retailers everywhere or shop jlab.com and use code PODCRUSHED for 15% off your order today.
You have talked about a friend, Moet. I don't know if that's how you say
Moet Hashimoto. Yeah,
yeah. And you've described her as like your soulmate. And I would love to hear more about that friendship, what it meant to you growing up, but also how you've managed to nourish it and keep it into adulthood. Because I've had a hard time kind of keeping friendships into adulthood.
Yeah, the only reason why it's really sustained into adulthood is because Moet is awesome and patient with me, because just like, you know, it is hard to kind of like sustain those relationships, especially if you're not like a social person that like goes to coffee or meets up for things. Like I always sort of need like a little bit of like an activity or something like that. And so I give Moet all the credit in the world. We went to high school together. I remember like seeing her across a room and being like, oh my God, I want to be friends with her. And she just had this aura of profound kindness. And so we became best friends, and I would go to her house every day after school and kind of just stay there. And her parents, they live in Japan full time, and they were in the States while she was being raised, but moved back to Japan right after when she went to college. And so we're sort of like, whenever I visit Japan, like the Hashimoto family is my family, and the Howard family is Moet's family in the States, like for sure.
It sounds like you have really rich relationships in your life. That's kind of maybe a bit of a weird thing to say, and I don't know if that's the way you feel. But that's, you know, it's a beautiful thing.
I think the richness of the relationships have to do with the duration of the relationships as well. Like Moet and I became best friends when we were 15. One of my husband and I have been together since we were 19. His best friend since kindergarten is Josh Gad. And so Josh is, do you know Josh?
No. Well, we may have met, but I don't know him.
You'll love Josh. You'll love Josh. You'll love him. He's a blast. And so, you know, he's the godfather of our kids. And
wow.
I think my parents were like that. You know, they didn't have many friends, but the friends that they have are like their friends from high school, or their friends from, like, my dad did Happy Days when he was in high school. So it's like Henry Winkler are my parents', like, you know, essentially childhood friend, even though it was in a professional setting that they met. So yeah.
How did you meet your husband Seth at 19?
So I saw him, similar but different from Moet. I saw him across the room and I was like, aha. And I was with one of my friends at the time, and I broke into hives, and my friend was like, what just happened? And I was like, that boy, look at that boy. And I went,
Aww, so sweet. You're like, I'm finally past 18.
I know, exactly. And I went home and I wrote in my journal, I met the man I'm going to marry.
Wow.
And I still have that journal. And so then the real work began, because I had to stalk him. Now I'm being kind of facetious, because stalking is a serious thing, and nobody should stalk anybody else. But I did. I did with his. He was aware. He was aware that I was interested, and I made a point of. We had a lot of friends in common, and like one of my friends had like a picture of him on their fridge, and I like took it. I was just like, he's so handsome. And there was a party that I heard that he was going to be at, and it was a party in Brooklyn. We went to NYU, and it was an annulment party, because two of our friends who were queer went to Atlantic City and got married, and then we're doing an annulment party. And so I was like, and I
Classic
never went.
NYU.
I know,
NYU
totally.
experience.
Totally, early aughts, of course. And I never, ever went out to parties, like ever, 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 ever. But I heard that he was going to be there. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go. What does one wear to an annulment party in Brooklyn? And I was like, naturally, my prom dress. So I wore my prom dress. And I walked in and my friend was like, one of my friends was like, oh, and here's Bryce in the most beautiful dress in the world. It was like a summer party. Like people were in like cut-off shorts and like tank tops. And it was all ironic, but I just didn't get the memo. And I thought I flirted with him mercilessly. But he said that I was just a little weird. I seemed a little intense. He like went home with someone else that day at the party. I was nothing. And then I went and saw him in a play, and I was like, oh my God, he's just so good. And I couldn't get him out of my head that night. So I went and watched a midnight showing of Hannibal by myself.
This is an amazing story.
Okay.
And then after Hannibal, it was like 2 a.m. And I was like, I have to make this happen now. So I called one of my friends who had his number, and she was like, hello? Like it was 2 a.m. And I was like, can you get me, it was my friend Mary. I was like, Mary, can I have Seth's number? And she was like, okay, I know you're not drunk dialing me because you don't drink, but I still need you to promise me that you're not going to call him until tomorrow. And I was like, absolutely, I will not call him until tomorrow. She gives me his number. I call him immediately.
You're like, it's already tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. And so I left a message on his voice memo, or on his home machine. And the message was like, hi, I'm Bryce. I'm a redhead. I don't know if you remember me. We have a lot of friends in common. I'd love to like hang out sometime. That would be so great. I would love that. And he didn't call me back. And then I later found out that his roommate at the time is someone who I knew, who I had done some classes with. His name is Dane. And Dane listened to my message. And Dane was like, Seth, I heard Bryce left this message on our machine. Like, you should hang out with her. She's cool. And he's like, she seems kind of intense. And Dane was like, no. You gotta, like, you should go out with her.
It's also not true, but you can be many things.
You can be many things. So I go out with him, and it, like, we hit it off, and it's great. And I later became writing partners with Dane for 6 years, and then I set him up with my sister, and they're married, and they have 3 kids.
Wow.
So I owed him one for sure.
Oh my God,
for
what
sure.
an incredible story.
It is.
I think this is my favorite
There's just
story.
something, I don't know if I'm like, you seem to have like a more incredible life and to be more interesting than any character you could ever play.
Yeah.
There's just the quality of every story you're telling. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That really sounds amazing.
That makes me feel really good. I mean, I'm a lot.
In the best way.
Why,
Wow.
thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so uplifting. I really loved hearing that.
Yeah.
We ask everyone a question about middle school, which is to share an embarrassing or awkward memory. I don't know if you have anything that stands out to you that you wouldn't mind sharing.
I think a lot of these classify. I think they're they're great. They've got so many levels, but please give us more.
I have many. I have so many. Too many to count. We all do. But one that occurred to me was when I was 14. Does this qualify, being 14?
Great.
Totally.
That
Okay,
counts.
14. When I was 14, this is a very weird thing that this even happened. The school that I went to, before I went to public school, this is one of the reasons why I went to public school for high school. I was like, I think I'm done with private schools for a little bit. I went to a private school for lower school and middle school, and there was a class trip arranged. And this was in the 90s, probably 90, what would it be, 95, 96, 95? And the class trip was to Russia. And I think one of our teachers.
Wait, you mean? Do you mean
the country Russia?
The country. Your class trip was
Moscow.
to Russia.
Classic private school.
Moscow.
Wow.
Moscow. Okay.
Everyone else is going to DC.
Exactly.
I swore I misunderstood. I was like,
We
what?
also did DC.
That was the appetizer.
Not all of us did DC because of what I'm about to tell you. Okay. So we go to Russia, and like the first night, all the kids figure out that the drinking age is 14. And they go absolutely berserk, to a degree that is so terrifying. I'm the only one that doesn't drink. I'm the only one on this entire trip that didn't drink.
Wow.
A kid like shaved his head with like a razor that you would shave your legs with, and it was like there were like scabs everywhere. There was like a girl that locked herself in a bathroom with like pills at one point, and it was just the whole thing was just it was
absinthe? Why? This sounds like it was more than just
honestly. And I was like,
14-year-olds on alcohol for the first time potentially.
Where are the teachers? So it was very intense, and I was just like, just get through this first night. It's going to be okay. The next day, we went and visited a local school. And so the next day, everybody, apart from me, is incredibly hungover, but they're not wanting to let the teachers know that anything is happening. So we're there, and we also want to be like, we're being hosted, you know, like we want to be like
American
respectful.
kids in Russia.
Exactly. And it's like instantly embarrassing because like all the kids in the school are like trilingual, and you know what I mean? Like it's like incredibly impressive intellectually, and you know, very, very gracious and respectful. And it's arranged for us to play a basketball game. And so I'm like, okay, we're playing a basketball game, and people are really dragging. And this kid, the kid that had shaved his head and had like this bloody head in the middle of the basketball game, just comes up to me and goes, and throws up all over me. And I was just like,
I can only imagine what the Russian parents were thinking. They're like, these fucking American kids are
I was
a
like,
mess.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. They're like, you don't be sorry. I'm like, I'm sorry. And
On behalf of all these drunkards.
Bleeding, vomiting
basketball
child.
player.
What's wrong with him?
honestly. And so the trip ended, and it was a big deal because every single person had to be brought into the principal's office, and they were asked, you know, did you drink? And the answer for everyone apart from me was yes. And so I go in, and they're like, Bryce, did you drink? And I was like, no, I promise no. And they were like, they all laughed, and they're like, we know you didn't. They're like, you were the only one. So all of those kids got suspended from the Washington, D.C. trip. So I basically went with like the 5 kids who weren't able to go on the Russia trip to DC that year.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was I was very I don't get embarrassed easily, but I was very embarrassed collectively for everyone, especially being the person who was vomited on in the basketball game.
How did you have that kind of, like, to be the single, not like one of 5 kids who you could kind of like, you know, band together and be like, yeah, look at them, like they're doing this crazy thing and we don't want to participate. But for you to be the only person, like, how do you think you withstood that, like, social pressure that I'm imagining was there? Seems like you didn't feel it, but can you think of what that was?
It might have been the kid bleeding from his head. That might have been the thing.
Yeah, no, there was
amazing.
the peer pressure thing is it's not a thing that really resonates, or I haven't been kind of like put in a scenario where I've really felt like, oh, I've got to, you know, I've just got to do this thing.
I just want everybody to know that she just described life as a circumstance where she doesn't ever really feel like she's in a position to be put in peer pressure. That's amazing.
It's amazing.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean,
I was earlier going to ask if, like, you know, at some point it was like a natural thing. I was like, well, do you admire your father? Your father must admire you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. He's I've got plenty of things that are not admirable about me, like plenty and plenty.
Well,
and I do admire him. My God, he's an impeccable human. The peer pressure thing is just I made a decision about like I'm not going to do this. And so the banter with people about like, "Oh, are you going to do this?" It was like, "No, I'm not. I'm not. No, I'm really not. Like no, I'm not going to eat in the lunchroom. It's too stimulating. Like I'm not gonna like I spoke at graduation and at my high school graduation, I like literally my entire speech was about like not being in the lunchroom. Oh, it's a place where it's like a big grand experiment where we're all put together in a building and it's like, let's see what happens.
Honestly.
So I do feel peer pressure in terms of like not wanting to like make a mistake or not wanting to like be an idiot or I should go to the thing to be respectful like that. That's all peer pressure and that's all very real. But sort of the feeling pressure to do something that you know you shouldn't do. I was my identity was so much about I don't break rules. Like I will not jaywalk. I will not jaywalk.
Even in New York, no.
Nope.
What?
No.
In New York City?
In New York City.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I will not. And it's, charming once and then annoying the rest of the time to like everybody in my life.
I believe that.
But I just do not. Like the few times, there was one time I took a picture of it where the signs were like both on at the same time. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this information? What do I do?
Oh.
So anyway.
I can't get enough of these stories.
This is so great. Bryce, we have to transition into your career, but it's hard to do because you've like been on sets. No, but I mean, you've like been on sets your whole life. I guess you started in theater. So maybe you can help us sort of like, what do you consider the pivotal moment that was like a professional transition for you?
Yeah. It was definitely, it was doing theater. I went to NYU and I did a play at NYU that a lot of people called the naked play. I was naked on stage for like 45 minutes, not like 45 minutes, 45 minutes, literally. And from that, got an agent who was an assistant at the time. And then I was with her for like 20 years. Now she's a manager. Wonderful lady. And so from that, I started auditioning, but I didn't want to leave school. And so it was just kind of theater stuff. And then eventually after a very, very long time, I got a theater job at the Manhattan Theater Club. And then there was sort of like a year and a half where I took a leave of absence from school and things kind of overlapped. So while I was performing at MTC, I was then rehearsing during the day for, there was a Broadway show that I did, Tartuffe at the Roundabout. And then when I was performing that, then I was rehearsing for a regional show for Our Town. And then the last show in that kind of like string of shows was As You Like It at the Public Theater. And that was a career-defining moment in a huge way because M. Night Shyamalan saw that play and then cast me in The Village, which was my first movie. So that was a really, 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 really lucky break. Very lucky break.
It's incredible that your first movie was like a lead role and he's like so hot at the time and it's an incredible movie.
And Joaquin and you, I mean, everybody's like so phenomenal in it.
My God, guys, I had the biggest crush on Joaquin Phoenix when I was 7 years old and he was Leaf Phoenix and he was in Parenthood. Aww. And it was insane being like, oh, you want me to play a character who's like been in love with this guy like her whole life? Sure. No problem. Easy. No problem. BDH crushes hard on a movie set. I was a child. No, that was very, incredibly courageous of Night to cast me and he was really supportive and lots of rehearsals, and all the actors were like what Penn said. It was like, Joaquin Phoenix and Adrian Brody right after he won an Oscar.
That's right.
William Hurt and Sigourney Weaver and just Brendan Gleeson, just an unbelievable group of people. So very, very magical.
Mm-hmm. You were in, one of, I think, the most iconic Black Mirror episodes, Nosedive. I think about that episode all the time, and I feel like it's just becoming more and more. It released in 2016, but it's just becoming more and more relevant. But as a mother, my daughter's only 18 months old, so I have a while to think about it, but it does start pretty early, like engagement with social media and technology, and I'm curious how you have approached that yourself as a mother.
Yeah, no, that's really been a thing. I think that doing that episode, which I love doing that episode, is directed by Joe Wright, who did Atonement and Pride and Prejudice and Darkest Hour, and he's just Cyrano recently. Just such a beautiful, beautiful filmmaker, and so I felt very lucky to be in that. And I had only joined, talk about peer pressure, I'd only joined social media 2 weeks prior to doing the episode. Wow. I was like a very, 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 very late adopter in terms of that. Never had like MySpace or Friendster or any of those things. And I joined it, and it was very informative. That was, intentional. I was like, oh, wow, my life just went from idyllic to a hellscape. How interesting that you buy something and then your life becomes this and you're trapped. But you think it's a gift. So it was very, it was kind of like a good moment for that. As a parent, I was really, 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 really strict. And then as they're 18 and 13 now. And as they got older, I realized I was like, oh man, what's so cool is I've got this episode I can show them where I can just properly traumatize them before they endeavor upon a relationship with
This
a
is mommy
smartphone.
on social media. If you want to be like this.
Like 1,000%. 1,000%. Like my kids call me Mumsy. And I was like, Mumsy has a movie to show you. So sick. So that was my role for them. I did a TED Talk as well a few years ago about preserving your private life, while living in public, which we're all doing now. We all have public lives. And so that was sort of my mandate for my kids. I was like, before you have a cell phone, you need to watch the Black Mirror episode, you need to watch the TED Talk, and then we need to have a sit down and kind of figure out some boundaries and all of that. And it's a mess for everybody at all times. But it definitely, I think, it gives me a little bit of an advantage as a parent, being able to be like, see this thing here? Like, I can't be the lady who's in that episode and is also just letting my kid go down the drain with the phone. Like, I can't.
No, that's
I'm a hypocrite.
Great curriculum just to start off with. That's what I'll do. Yeah. Black Mirror, TED Talk, and then we'll get you on the phone.
Yeah. God, I don't know. I mean, it's
crazy time.
It's hard. It's tricky.
One of the biggest changes I've made in my 30s is taking my health seriously. I've started paying attention to how my body actually feels every day, right? Right, because you have to, especially into your later 30s. You just start to feel things that you didn't feel before. One thing that I've got now that is never going to change is probably my gut. It plays a huge role in everything: my energy, my mood, and my immunity. Whether or not I'm going to get sick or catch one of the colds from one of my little children. And I know I'm not alone. 2 out of 3 Americans say they suffer from digestive issues, and 95% of Americans don't get the daily recommended amount of fiber. That is a lot of Americans. Olipop is tackling both of these issues with a drink that tastes just like soda. Olipop has 9 grams of prebiotic fiber, that's a very good thing, in every can that can help support your digestive health. They've even conducted a study that showed that their Oli Smart formulation boosts beneficial gut bacteria, and generates metabolites supporting digestive and overall health. The short of the long is that when you drink this thing, it feels really good, not only tasting good. I mean, so Olipop comes in a lot of delicious, nostalgic flavors. Like they've got vintage cola, sort of like a classic cola, classic root beer, orange squeeze, classic grape, strawberry vanilla, cream soda, and cherry cola. My personal favorites are the classic root beer and the cream soda. It's I can't describe it. They have this incredibly rich, sweet flavor. I mean, honestly, it's kind of hard to believe that it's something that's good for you, that's healthy. But, I'm attuned to my body. I've been sober for a long time. I feel when something is good, and this stuff feels and tastes really good. Get a free can of Olipop. Buy any 2 cans of Olipop in store, and we'll pay you back for 1. Works on any flavor, any retailer. drinkolipop.com/podcrushed. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com and Amazon, and available in almost 50,000 retailers nationwide, including Costco, Walmart, Target, Publix, Whole Foods, Kroger, and H-E-B.
Bryce, you have a new movie out shortly. Next week, I think, Deep Cover. The premise is so fun. The movie is so fun. And I'm curious if there was any actual improvisation that made it into the film, or did you guys kind of follow the script pretty strictly? Can you tell us about that?
So the premise of the movie Deep Cover, it's an action comedy, a British action comedy. I'm the only American in it. And it's about a group of improv actors who get recruited to do low-level sting operations for the Met Police in London. And because the central tenet of improv is yes and, they keep getting kind of like drawn deeper and deeper and deeper into this criminal underground empire and getting more and more and more in trouble. So it's very fun, especially it's fun to play an actor, and then you get to as an actor, make fun of actors. Like that's a very juicy thing to do. Particularly something about the characters. So I play basically someone who's like a failed actor who's a teacher, an improv teacher in the UK. She comes from Chicago, and she has this. She gets recruited, and she needs to bring 2 other operatives, and she's got her 2 other star students who get agents, and so she ends up recruiting her 2 worst students. One is a method actor played by Orlando Bloom, and he is so brilliant because anyone who knows anything about improv, it is the opposite of being a method actor. It's all about just being present and listening to your partner and just, not trying to sort of get out of your head, And being a method actor is a very kind of, there's a lot of rumination, and it's very internal, and you're really kind of thinking through what you're wanting to do and whatnot. And so Orlando was absolutely hilarious as that. And then Nick Mohammed, who's a fantastic comedian. He was on Ted Lasso, just so good. And he plays a guy who's insecure at work and doesn't have any friends, and so he signs up for these improv classes. That guy.
I love him. He's so funny.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So he signs up for these classes to gain some confidence. And so the long-winded answer to your question is, the script was written by these guys who are a really famous improv comedy duo in the UK. Ben Ashenden and Alexander Owen. They're called the Penn. They performed on the West End for years. They are brilliant. So they improvised their way into a script that was so tight and so funny. It was how can we improve upon this? And yet they played the detectives in the movie, the writers. They were the detectives. So they were there constantly, and they had worked with the director, Tom Kingsley, a ton. And so we would do a lot of improv to kind of find our way into a scene. And sometimes there would be things that would stay in the cut. But honestly, I mean, Orlando improv some stuff that's definitely in there. But Nick was the improv winner. No question about it. And so that was very fun. So we didn't need to, but we did. It was fun. And mostly the stuff that survived was Nick.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I can't think of any time I've seen Orlando Bloom, and I don't even think of him as comedy. I think of him as so much action. So it was so fun to see him kind of in this role. And
wasn't he kind of a revelation?
Yeah, completely. And I also haven't seen him in anything in a while. So it was just like, I mean, you were all amazing, but Orlando did kind of, it was like, wow, this is so cool to see him and kind of like let loose. It was so fun.
Oh no, he pops in a big way in this movie.
I think his fans are going to love him in this. Yeah,
but they're going to go nuts because he basically plays like 3 different characters because he's this method actor who's then going undercover as this other character, and then you learn his real backstory, which is very endearing. And so it's. I mean, it was like, we're doing this comedy and it's fun and it's light and we're all having a good time, and so is Orlando. But my God, he definitely had the most intensive job because he was like, so when I come into the scene, am I Roach, am I Marlon, or am I Tristan? I'm like, oh my God, this is too much. Then the Oscar goes to Orlando Bloom. It's pretty astonishing.
So amazing. Bryce, you're also a director. You've directed several things. I'm curious. I mean, there's so much to choose from, but I guess Star Wars, we should probably talk about that. There's such a huge fan base, and I think you yourself are a lifelong fan. And I'm wondering if being a lifelong fan, if you notice if that impacted the way that you directed Star Wars versus other things that you've directed, or if it kind of translates in the same way.
Well, something that I've kind of realized in my life is that my enthusiasm is my superpower. So when I'm doing something, I get pretty enthusiastic about it, no matter what it is. And I mean, it's genuine. Like, I don't get enthusiastic about everything.
We definitely believe you. It's clear. That's what I'm saying. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful.
But I get very, very, very excited. And so it's Star Wars is very, very exciting, but so is directing a sheep for a VW commercial. It's all interviewing kids for a pets documentary. I love all of it. What's interesting for me about Star Wars is that I don't have this sort of classic relationship that most folks have to the movies, because like normally you like with Jurassic, for instance, like I watched Jurassic in the theaters when I was 12, opening weekend, and I cried when I saw the visual effects because I knew that cinema had changed forever. Like I was like, oh my God, it's real dinosaurs. Like I was like, I was incredibly moved. And so that I became a fan of Jurassic through being an audience member. I became a fan of Star Wars because I love George Lucas and grew up with George. George cast my dad in American Graffiti when he was 17 years old. My mom was around then. George is 10 years older. He's always been an incredible mentor to my dad, almost like he's like a big brother to him. And getting to be on the way my memory works is like I remember things like it happened as an adult. Like there's not like this sort of like, oh, this was when I was a kid and this was when I was adult. Like it's just sort of all the same. And so being on the set of, and I have a pretty strong memory, and so being on the set of Willow, for instance, where George was there, like that was so vivid. And seeing the way that he worked and seeing the way he supported my dad and the visual effects that were able to be invented on that show, like morphing was invented on Willow. Wow. And then just like being at Skywalker Ranch and all that kind of stuff and seeing the posters and just seeing George's passion and dedication and the ways in which he was always so collaborative and inclusive and bringing people into these like extraordinary worlds that he would create. I fell in love with it. And then I went to Stage Door Manor for summer camp, and Natalie Portman was going there, And shortly after that, she started working on Star Wars, and she did the prequels, and all that was like pretty confidential. But she was 15, and you need some friends around, and so
she was 15 when she was doing that.
She was 15. She turned
Whoa,
16 on the shoot. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
if you would have
that's
asked
wild.
me in my memory, I would have thought like at least 20. That's crazy.
No, she was
Crazy.
15 years old.
Wow.
15 years
Yeah.
old. And it was also like, I mean, she's such a pro and so brilliant and can do anything. For me, what I was observing is like she was a 15-year-old, and when she turned 16, the laws are different in the UK. And so you work according to adult hours. But if you're still doing school, you're doing adult hours and you're still doing school. And if you're Natalie Portman, you're like on your way to
AP
Harvard.
Physics, yeah.
So it's serious. You know what I mean? Like it's very serious. And I don't know how she juggled it all. But getting to be there and to be around that and to see George shooting and digital filmmaking was such a big deal, and just like rooting for it, you know, and excited about it. And so when my dad stepped in to do solo, I asked to shadow, which took a little while to convince him that was an okay thing. And I would be in some of the meetings, and he would be kind of shocked because they would show characters, and I would be like, wait, Darth Maul, but how does he have legs? And my dad would be like, how do you know about this? And I was like, well, but I was there that day. You know, so it was just sort of the world just was around.
You're a part of that world, it sounds like, actually.
I can't say a part of it because but
yeah.
close to it.
You were
I
a
was
part
around.
of it happening. I mean, you were there. So
I was around,
it's
yeah.
interesting that it's somehow intrinsic to your directorhood, or there's something happening there that's like it's just not an average relationship to it at all.
Yeah.
It's very, 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 very fortunate. So the fact that I am able, I mean, I love directing and love directing on Star Wars, and I love working for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I love those guys. Oh my God. Jon Favreau is the most incredible mentor as a director. Oh my God. And Dave Filoni has really taught me everything that I know about Star Wars. And Dave's ethos is to really always go back to George, understand what George's influences were, understand what went into the recipe that is Star Wars. Because when you understand that, then you're going to be able to make choices from a more informed place. And so it's been many years getting to work on those shows, and I adore it.
If you boil it down to the essence of what Star Wars is for you, because I actually, I happen to not be a massive Star Wars fan. I'm not that knowledgeable of the whole world, but of course it's I'm in the minority there. So
No, that's okay.
I'm curious. I know that it has some deeply philosophical and spiritual principles kind of at its core. I'm curious, what is that core to you as you understand it and as you apply it as a director?
The thing that's cool about Star Wars, from my perspective, is that it seems like, at least if you think about it from a place of genre, there's something for everyone. There are, George's influences were spaghetti westerns, Kurosawa, Flash Gordon. So there's a real, if you like movies where racing is happening, that happens in Star Wars. If you like movies where where it's supernatural and people have supernatural powers and all that kind of stuff, that happens in Star Wars. If you want gangsters and a kind of dangerous world and people doing seedy things to one another but having fun and it's a little bit juicy, that's in Star Wars. So it has so much humanity in it, and it really reflects planet Earth without being so specific that it's a commentary. And so I think that if you get into it, you relate to it in ways that are perhaps a little bit surprising. I do not like hard fantasy, and I do not like hard sci-fi. There are some exceptions. Like you could is Star Trek hard sci-fi? Like I love Star Trek Next Generation. Like I'm obsessed. I love it. But for the most part, what I love about Star Wars is that it is like messy, dirty, real people. You know, it's not. I mean, until you get to kind of like more of the Jedi, where there is a formality, there is stoicism, there is all of that. But because of the stories, we know what's also underneath that and the cost of that. And so I think when it comes to the lore, there's something for everyone. And in particular, as it pertains to the Force, I mean, that's so personal. Like, what is the Force? You know, George would say the Force is God. But anyone gets to kind of determine what that means for them. But I really, like, I believe in the Force. Like, I believe in it. And I find it strange that, like, I can't move things. You know, that I'm like,
Bryce,
what?
I think if you could put your mind to it, you might be able to.
The energy is there.
Yeah. I don't know. I could fool myself into thinking maybe, perhaps. but it's I just I believe in Star Wars as if it's real. It feels very honest, and playful and entertaining. It doesn't take itself very seriously. So anyway, that's what I like about Star Wars.
That is a natural segue back to our last question. We're about to lose you. If you could go back to 12-year-old Bryce,
yes,
what would you say or do, if anything?
I would say never diet.
Love that.
Nice.
That's great advice.
Love it.
Never, ever diet. Don't try to change your body based on what you eat and how your movements are. Two separate things. You have no control over your body. So just eat what you need to eat to feel good and move how you need to move to feel good. And everything else is going to land where it's going to land. So
Perfect.
I never had an eating disorder or anything like that, but just through I kind of like being told, because
totally.
I have a medium-sized body. It was like, oh, but we like you, but like 15 pounds less. And that became a sort of huge distraction. It's like, it doesn't even work. So yeah, I would just say straight up, no dieting, never. For me.
Yeah,
now,
great.
Now, obviously, like I have food allergies, so I'm not talking about that. Like when you actually have to, like, you know, have something for your health, not trying to control the size of your body.
Totally, yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
I love that answer, Bryce, because it is a huge distraction and a massive waste of time.
A massive waste of time, and it makes things worse.
It does make things worse. It actually makes it harder to stay at a healthy level. Yeah,
everything. So yeah, I really believe in health at every size, and the unhooking myself from that, which happened around when I did Black Mirror, was like I told some folks in my life that I decided to stop dieting, and their question to me was, "Am I going to retire?"
Wow, I love the transparency at least.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, I love that it's I mean, yeah.
I was like, huh?
Wow.
Huh? No, I'm not going to retire.
You're like, shut up, Dad. No, I'm kidding. I'm of course kidding.
You would never.
Kidding.
You can watch Deep Cover on Amazon Prime now, and you can keep up with Bryce Dallas Howard online at Bryce D. Howard. Podcrushed is hosted by Penn Badgley, Nava Kavalin, and Sophie Ansari. Our senior producer is David Ansari, and our editing is done by Clips Agency. Special thanks to the folks at Lemonada. And as always, you can listen to Podcrushed ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. Okay, that's all. Bye.